Good morning, everyone. We welcome you all to the 24th IASSI Annual Conference. Let us cheer ourselves up and give each other a huge round of applause for being present and, making the 24th IASSI Annual Conference happen. So before we start with the presidential address, I would invite Professor Alak N. Sharma, the Director of Institute of Human Development, New Delhi, for a few words that would help us kickstart the event. Sir, can we have a few words from him? Can you all, applause and welcome all the speakers on the dais who would be coming and sharing their experiences and their thoughts with a huge round of applause. Thank you. Sir, over to you.
Swati, I am here only to introduce the guests, not for applause. Professor Ramesh, Professor Chaturvedi, Professor Hashim, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I have been asked to introduce our guests here, Professor Ramesh, Professor Hashim, and Professor Chaturvedi. I will start with, I should not take more than 2-3 minutes. As you know, Professor Ramesh Chand is probably the most outstanding agricultural economist of this country, of global reputation. He is a member of NITI Aayog in the ministerial rank, looking after agriculture, food system, food security, and several other things. In the lecture that you will get, you can see he is also Advisory Policy Council of Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, also member of the CGIR, which is the global organization coordinating all agricultural things, then CCMIT, and also member of the Global Future Council on Future of Food Security and Agriculture. So he has been a visiting professor in this Australian university, which Wollongong, you have been Wollongong, yeah, DP Chaudhary. And he is also a member of the board of, Professor Ramesh, and I understand you are also a member of the board of IFRI, International Food Policy Research Institute. And currently he guides our entire agricultural and policy and related policies, and in that climate change also included in our country. Always busy, but he has been my friend, I must say, for the last 30 years or so. And even being important, he cares for his friends. So this is one personal quality that I will refer. And he is the conference president this year, which has given a lot of time to this association, Indian Association of Social Science Institutions. Professor Hashim, who will be chairing this session, again, I can say NITI Aayog is a successor institution. Professor Hashim worked in Planning Commission as a member and member secretary for a long years. Also, principal advisor, many positions. And apart from several portfolios he also was taking care of agriculture, also labor, many things, but agriculture, water. And Professor Hashim has been a professor in Baroda University. He has been director of the Institute of Economic Growth. He has been chairman of Union Public Service Commission, India's ambassador to Kazakhstan. So many heads Hashim Sahib combines, you can imagine. And of course, a leading development economist of this country. And Also sitting here is Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, the president of this association IASSI for the last 3 years, who without any exaggeration I can tell you that with his arrival in the scene on the top, this association has taken a big leap and now it has been dynamized. So, and Professor Chaturvedi is of course, leading development economist working on a variety of fields, institution builder. Till recently he was in RIS and currently Nalanda University Vice Chancellor he is. And it seems in 2, 3, 4 months I remember he has again taken Nalanda University to making in a separate league. And probably Nalanda is going to emerge under his leadership. You have 5 more years as a really world-class university where people from different parts of the country will come. So with these words, I welcome all the 3 guests. And Professor Hashim, you can now start the session, probably before Chief Minister comes, so around 1 hour we have. So Professor Hashim, we are in your hands.
Friends, it's a great privilege and pleasure for me to chair this session presidential address given by Professor Ramesh Chand. I have known Professor Ramesh Chand for 30 years now. In 95, when I joined Institute of Economic Growth, he was already there. He was my colleague 30 years ago. At that time, he was young economist, but very brilliant. I think he was busy with, he had done a lot of work already at that time in agricultural diversification, particularly with reference to Punjab, and had already made a name. And I'm really proud that since he went places, he had achieved name and fame as the best agricultural economist in India at present, with great insight into the sector, some of which we are going to hear. I will not take much time. I will request Professor Ramesh Chand to deliver his address, and later on I will take a few minutes for chairman's remarks.
Respected Professor Hashim, Dr. Chaturvedi, President of Indian Association of Social Sciences Institute, Dr. Alak Sharma ji. Without any designation, he is the main force behind so many activities happening in this association. Delegates, students, staff of Doon University, faculty members, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to express my gratitude to office bearers and general body of IASSI for giving me this honor of delivering presidential address in the 29th conference of the association. Well, when Sharma ji approached me for giving title of my address, I was facing a dilemma. The dilemma was that social science is a very broad kind of discipline, and many a times agriculture is not even considered part of social sciences, but agriculture economics is I would say mildly or in passing considered as part of the social sciences. So I was thinking whether I should write something on employment or social sector on which we have rich data in NITI Aayog. But then I thought for 2 reasons. One is that I will not change my loyalty from agriculture. Throughout my life, I worked on agriculture, and my identity is with agriculture economics. So that loyalty, um, uh, I would say, persuaded me that better I write something on agriculture. The second reason was that in last 10-15 years, there is a renewed thinking on role of agriculture in economic development. In fact, it started with World Development Report, which was first time written by agriculture economists like Day January, Derek Wirely, that they brought this issue that role of agriculture in economic development is not, but Arthur Lewis has visualized the circumstances indicate in the present condition that role of agriculture in economic development is totally different. Well, today is not the time to talk about those things, but I will briefly say that what were those things which were turning out to be different. One was that the turn which global economy took after global financial crisis of 2006. After that, globally and in large number of countries, agriculture has grown faster than non-agriculture. So which was something opposite of what was visualized, that when world economy grows, share of agriculture in economy declined and share of non-agriculture increased. That process got reversed after 2006. Some of you who are interested, they can see to that. And the change was not small. So between 2006 and 2024, share of agriculture increased by 33%. From 3% it increased to 4 point something percent. Then second was, we all know employment issue, that because of AI and so many other kind of things, the jobs in non-agriculture sector are growing at a very slow rate. They are not absorbing or helping in shifting of workforce from agriculture to non-agriculture. So then again some people started thinking, if this is going to be the situation of job, should we rethink about making agriculture job more attractive? Then this issue of climate change, sustainability, all those came, in which there is a literature that agriculture plays very, very vital role. Without taking some initiative in agriculture, those issues which are important for survival of people and planet, they cannot be addressed. So then I thought that even though it is an association of social sciences, the way agriculture is acquiring more and more relevance and prominence in economy, in social life, in sustainability, so it will not be out of place if I speak on a theme on agriculture. So I just now come to the theme of agriculture in meeting aspiration of rising India. And some of you who are more deeply interested, I published a paper last year in famous agriculture economics journal published by John Billey, where I talked about similar thing in the global context, that rethinking role of agriculture in growth, development and poverty alleviations. So I come to the theme which I selected for this conference, and I understand the address is being circulated to you. I prepared that under some time pressure. There are a few printing errors. I hope you will excuse me for that. That's why I wrote it a draft presidential address. So India is steadfastly pursuing the vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. By Viksit Bharat, we mean a developed India that meets the aspiration of its people and stands as a leading global economic power. The national goal is now being increasingly embraced and internalized by states and union territories. A growing number of states have initiated the preparation of their own state vision documents and sectoral growth plans, aligning their development priorities with the national mission of Viksit Bharat. Viksit Bharat has two major components. One, to to raise per capita income to a level to match the income level of developed country, and 2, inclusive development of Sabka Vikas. Economic growth is the pathway, economic growth is the pathway to raise per capita income, while gainful employment is the pathway for inclusive development. The first requires raising per capita income from present level of 2.3 lakh to rupees 12 lakh in today's prices and exchange rate. These figures imply that India's per capita income must increase at the rate of 7.3% for next 23 years if we want to enjoy the status of Viksit Bharat. If we factor in the growth rate in population, then the overall growth rate required in the economy. First slide करिए आप बीच में middle में चले गए या रहने दीजिए उसको. First slide show करिए. इससे पीछे वाला. यहाँ छोड़ दीजिए. So this means that per capita income need to be increased 6 times, which is a formidable task. But it doesn't mean that this kind of thing has not happened in the past. So we have experience of Japan, Korea, most recently the experience of China, where we found that by having a growth rate of 7%, large number of countries were able to rise from similar per capita income which India has now to the level of this $14,000 per capita income. Agriculture would need to play a significant role in this journey for 2 reasons. One, agriculture and allied sectors, crop, livestock, fishery and fishing, is the second largest sector of Indian economy. This sector constitutes 1/5 of the total national income of our country, and therefore the growth rate in this sector influence what is the overall growth rate of Indian economy. And calculation and projection in NITI Aayog shows that growth in non-agriculture activities alone cannot raise per capita income to a level of high income nation without strong contribution of agriculture sector. Second, today 46% of total workforce and 64% of female workforce is engaged in agriculture as their main economic activity. Thus, agriculture is the main source of livelihood for nearly half of India's population and most significant economic activity for Sabka Vikas, that is inclusive growth. In this background, I would like to present the historical growth path of Indian agriculture and explore how West agriculture can help India and its people to meet their aspirations of Viksit Bharat. So I start with performance of agriculture, which is projected on the slide. आप आगे कहाँ चले जाते हैं? फर्स्ट स्लाइड पे रखिए या फिर रहने दीजिए उसको. हाँ, पीछे वाली स्लाइड. हाँ, या यहीं पे. Unless I indicate, please do not go ahead. So as you can see from this slide, gross value added in agriculture and allied activity experienced impressive annual growth rate of 3.4% from mid-80s to mid-80s, mid-70s to mid-80s, when green revolution technology was spreading over larger area of the country and white revolution also took off. The subsequent 2 decades from 85-86 to 94-95 and 95 to 2005 witnessed deceleration in growth, which brought down annual growth of agriculture below 2.4%. But from 2004-5, you just find that growth rate of agriculture just accelerated. A sort of structural break in the growth trajectory was observed in year 2004. So after that, you find that in the last 10 years, the growth rate of agriculture has reached 4.45% per year for last 10 years. It is important to mention that this level of growth was never achieved in any decade before 2015. And it is also important to mention, I have not included that slide here, that in last 10 years, the growth rate of agriculture has accelerated, but despite best effort of the government to push manufacturing growth rate, the manufacturing growth has rather slowed down. So if you look at the gap between growth of agriculture and manufacturing, which was as high as 3% 10-15 years back, is now reduced to just 1.5%. Further, the growth rate is not only historically highest, it is also the highest in the last decade among major agricultural countries. According to FAO data, before 2015, the growth rate of agriculture in India was same as was the world average, that was 3%. After that, the growth rate of world agriculture slowed down from 3% to 2.8%, but that of Indian agriculture accelerated to 4.42% according to Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. So with this growth, now India emerged as the fastest growing agriculture economy in the world, leaving behind China in the growth rate of the sector, which we often talk that how we can reach level of China or how we can cross the level of China. I think this is one sector which has already enabled the nation to acquire that ambition. Second aspect is rise in resilience, which is very important in the context of sustainability, in the context of climate change. The achievement in growth in GVA was accompanied by many other positive accomplishments. One, agriculture sector acquired resilience despite rising severity of climate events. So this is very interesting slides. Even in the breakfast, I was discussing this with a colleague from OECD, that over time, because of climate change, instability is rising, the shocks are rising. But if you look at instability in agriculture in a 10 years period, using the simple indicators, that one of the indicator of stability is that if year on year rate of change is same, then instability is 0. If year on year rate of change or growth rate deviate, fluctuate, some year 10% plus, some year minus 3%, then you will find that instability will be much higher. So if you look at the standard deviation in year on year rate of change in agriculture growth, you find that in 80s it was as high as 10%. But at present it has just come down to 3%. How it could happen that there is a climate change happening, despite that how Indian agriculture is becoming more stable? You can look at it in other way also, that in last 10 years we did not have a single year when the growth rate of agriculture sector was negative. But if you look at a decade before, there was 3 years out of 10 when agriculture growth became negative. And if you look before 2005, there used to be 4 years out of 10 when agriculture growth used to become negative. So how come, despite climate change and all kind of pressures, Indian agriculture is able to increase its resilience and stability, and that is important when in the future we talk about adaptation to climate change. 3 factors played a role in this. The first factor is development of irrigation. In last 10 years, the kind of irrigation expansion which has happened in India, that kind of expansion was happening earlier before 92-93. In between 92-93 and 2015, you find that public irrigation like irrigation under canal etc. did not increase at all, and overall irrigation also increased at a very slow rate. But after that, by redesigning, rethinking on irrigation, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, which has so many innovative components, you just find that area under irrigation is increasing by 1 percentage point every year. So that was one factor which brought stability in the growth rate. The second factor was diversification, that base of Indian agriculture broadened. the dominance of cereal got significantly diluted. Further, dominance of crop sector got reduced and share of livestock fishery increased. That was the second factor which played a role. The third factor was role of agriculture R&D. I served in Indian Council of Agriculture for so many years, and I have been closely watching what they are doing, and I just found that when few years back flood used to play havoc with rice crop, the agriculture R&D system came with a variety which could tolerate submergence. So even if that variety is under complete submergence for many days, it will not die, it will survive. Second is we have seen in case of wheat, so anyway no time to tell those interesting stories, but I have seen that the third thing also played important role, and that's how Indian agriculture became much more resilient compared to what it was earlier. Third slide, pe chale jaiye, backward. Now I come to performance at disaggregate level, that okay, overall growth rate of Indian agriculture is historical. Never before since 51 we had that kind of growth rate, but where it is happening. This slide is very, very important. There is a wide variation in growth experienced in various subsectors of agriculture. During the decade of 5 to 14, gross value added of crop sector recorded 3% growth, which decelerated to 2.8% during 2014 to 2024. In contrast, livestock and fishery witnessed very high acceleration in their growth. Fishery sector witnessed close to 9% growth, which is more than 3 times the growth rate in crop sector. So you just see that within crop sector, if you take only field crops, the growth rate was only 1.9%. But if you take horticulture, it doubled. When you take livestock, it tripled. When you take live fishery, it even more than 4 times. So this development is very important, that the lowest growth is in the segment where we are giving lot of support through MSP, input subsidy, etc. But subsequent sector, you just find that that kind of support is not there. So we need to identify what is that factor which is making horticulture, livestock and fishery to grow so fast that despite MSP for rice, wheat and others, their growth rate is not increasing that much. So very interesting. अब वो demand वाले पे जाइए. So let me just first explain this, that how come cereal, oilseed pulses, they are not growing fast, but others are growing very fast. Reason is very simple, that it is market driven, it is demand driven. If you look at what is happening to demand side for different food group, you just find despite abundance of cereal, despite India having 15-20% of rice as a surplus and we are exporting it, but people of India, they are reducing their intake of cereals. The preference of people is not to increase intake of cereal, their preference is toward other kind of commodities, horticulture, fruit, vegetable, milk, egg, meat, fish. So you find what kind of growth has happened in those commodities, and the growth rate in cereal is the demand for cereal is not rising. So this is what explains that why even though MSP is not there, horticulture crop are having very high growth, livestock and fishery, they are having very high growth. So this also shows that power of demand to push growth is much stronger than what is the power of government help to push growth of a particular sector. Then this differential growth rate in agriculture sector has changed composition of agriculture, and as I just mentioned earlier, that the share of crop in overall is declining, and within crop sector share of high value crop is rising, and share of staple etc. that is declining. From that I come to producer's income, because till few years back we just realized that we should not be chasing only the growth of output or growth of the sector. We should also look at what is happening to the income of producer, what is happening to the income of farmer. And these change in goals happen depending upon situation. When there was food shortage, we were importing a lot of food, it makes sense to give highest priority to growth rate in output. But once you move from that shortage to self-sufficiency and to surplus, then it becomes imperative that let us look at what is happening to the income of those who are producing food, who are doing agriculture. And that was the reason that in 1516, Honorable Prime Minister came with this slogan of doubling farmer income by 2022-23, when India celebrates 75 years of its independence. The data on farmer income is not published by statistical sources, but if you look at the National Count source, you will find that they publish income of, they call it mixed income and income of producers, which is same as the income of the farmer producers from agriculture sector. But they publish it only at current prices, so I'm presenting the trend in that only at current price, not at real price or constant price, but one can drive that. So if we look at what happened to that income, now just some comments on this slide. There is a table also, if the presidential address has been circulated to you. Gross value added in agriculture and allied sector is a measure of income of sector, which then get distributed over labor, capital and producers. Producer income is arrived at by deducting estimate of consumption of capital, depreciation, etc., compensation to employees and taxes, and adding subsidies to the sector from GVA, agriculture and allied. The income is termed as operating surplus or mixed income in National Count statistic publication. This data is published by NSO only at current price, and we can compare it across the sector and all those kind of things. So again, certain things happen first time in last 10 years, and those are that generally you will find that it is manufacturing which will grow at faster rate than agriculture. It is non-agriculture which will grow at faster rate than agriculture. But if you look at the last 10 years, and if you look at the income or operating surplus of agriculture sector, then you just find that the growth rate, the income of the producer or income of the household sector, which mean income of the farmer, has been increasing at current price by 10% every year, and in last 10 years it has increased by 126%. And what is remarkable is that this growth rate, again first time in income of the farmers, is higher than what is the growth rate in income of manufacturer and income of non-agriculture producers. Again, I would say that it could happen because of two reasons. One is that very good growth in agriculture, and second is that terms of trade heavily moved in favor of agriculture sector. Even between 15-16 and 2022-23, those 7 years, income of farmer at current prices increased by 108%, that is 8% more than what was required for a doubling of farmer income. Next I go to what are the drivers of this growth in sectoral income, what are the driver of growth in income of the farmers, how it has helped, and whether these growth drivers will be available to us in future also. It is well established in the literature that prices play a very significant role in incentivizing farmer to adopt modern technology, use improved seeds, and make investment in land, irrigation, farm machinery, and other farming assets. All these factors raise productivity and production, and hence contribute towards growth. However, role of non-price factor is equally important, and it is crucial to maintain balance between the two set of factors affecting agriculture. If we look at the price factor first, you look at index of agriculture prices relative to non-agriculture prices. I have given two graphs. One is terms of trade, which is calculated as a ratio of implicit price deflator of agriculture relative to non-agriculture. And second is how WPI agriculture has increased and how wholesale prices of index for non-agriculture has increased. So there is a evidence which I have given here that how agriculture prices have increased faster than non-agriculture. Like between 12 and 24, agriculture wholesale price index has increased by 96%. Non-agriculture has increased only by 42%. So clearly this shift in terms of trade by 30 to 40%. Yeah, you can stay here. So this is just data which you can see how agriculture prices have been rising at a much faster rate than non-agriculture. The second factor, as I mentioned before, is development of irrigation. You will be surprised, and I am making this statement with responsibility, that between 91-92 and 2015-16, this country spent thousands of crores of rupees on medium and major irrigation. But area under major and medium irrigation, like canal and other government system, rather than increasing, it declined from 17 million hectare to 15 million hectare. So you can imagine what would have happened in this period that so much investment made, but area under public sources of irrigation was not increasing. So this process got reversed, and gross irrigated area under all sources of irrigation increased from 98 million hectare to 122 million hectare. Sorry, in the print draft the figures are wrong. The figure which is printed there is area, irrigated area sown more than once. The actual figures are 98 million hectare and 122 million hectare. It helped in raising productivity, crop shift toward high value crop and crop intensity, shift in cropping pattern toward fruit and vegetable and other high value crops. Two other factors which exerted positive influence is the progress in Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. You will again, if you look at that data, because many people will raise question in Parliament, what is this? Most of the money is going to the insurance agencies. What is going to farmer is much less than what is being paid to the insurance agencies. So I looked at it, the comparison in a World Bank study, whether the insurance company in India are being paid more than what they are being paid elsewhere in other country. Again, you will be surprised to know that global average of what insurance company are paid out of premium is 70%, and in India it is only 63%. So yes, in some states they have not come with crop insurance, but over time you will just find that the area covered under crop insurance, number of farmers who are coming under insurance coverage has increased. And it is not only those farmers who are taking loan that they are coming for insurance. The number of non-loany farmers opting for insurance is growing at a much faster rate than number of loany farmers. So this is the development happening, which covered the production risk. And then in terms of institutional credit also, there is I would say a lot of increase has happened in this period. Today, medium and short-term credit constitute nearly 40% of value of output of agriculture, which have helped farmer to escape from the high interest rate charged by private sector, etc. So like this, there are many other development initiatives which I have mentioned in my paper for agriculture, for livestock and other things which you can see there. Next important is employment. एक employment पे slide है yellow color का. Next important is yeah, please stop here. Now again in India, we all heard about demographic change. So because of demographic change, you find that our population growth rate right now is only 0.8%. It is decelerating. But growth rate because of demographic transition comes out to be much higher. But there is one more development happening in the labor market, that is that women who earlier used to be at home doing household activity only, they are moving to labor force en masse. A sort of tsunami is happening. In 1718, only 16% of total population of women was in workforce, and now it is 31%. So if you combine these two factors, you just find that the labor force in India is increasing by 5% every year, whereas population is increasing only by 0.8%. So you suddenly can't create so much employment in non-agriculture, manufacturing and elsewhere. So agriculture is working as a sink for those who are not in the early stage getting job elsewhere. Yes, they can stay back in agriculture, and lot of things happening in agriculture, empowerment of women, employment of women, and their share rising, agriculture share itself rising from 44% to 46%. So I think this is another very big kind of contributions. I also in my paper presented about what kind of growth rate in domestic demand will happen in the next 10-15 years. What will be the growth rate in production, and how they will span out, what will be the net. So again there is a table there. Next, very interesting table. Next. Okay, so what I have shown in that table is that right now our agriculture output is growing at 4.5%. If this inertia continues, agriculture is poised to achieve growth rate of 5% in the next 10 years. But then country will also have choice that if we are having high growth, it is affecting our natural resources and many other things. Next. Yeah, just stay here. So I just looked at what are the possible scenario of growth rate in output and what will be the growth rate in domestic demand. So our projections are that in next 10 years, if the business as usual scenario continues, India's surplus will grow and India will be required to sell 20% of its food production in overseas market. Right now we are selling more than 20% of rice in overseas market, but if this growth rate reaches 5%, the 20% of the output will be surplus over what is the domestic demand. So either we need to find demand elsewhere in industry like biofuel, etc., or we need to find overseas market, which has its own implication that agriculture must become competitive if we want to sell it in international markets. So like this, there are many other things. I am not going into detail. I just now come to conclusion because we have next session where honorable dignitary are also expected to participate. But I got indication from chairperson that I can take some more time to share some other thought. That thought is, there is one more slide that is related to nutrition. Previous. Yeah, please stay here. No, previous. Yeah, stay here. This is very important slide, as you all know that main purpose of agri-food sector is to provide nourishment. But if we look at what is happening to per capita food production, as I shared figure with you, that food output is rising by 4 to 5% and population is rising only by 0.8%. So per capita food production is now rising per capita by more than 3%. In fact, in last 20 years, it has increased by 50%. But if we look at the statistics provided by FAO, you find that the improvement in undernourishment is very, very slow. It was population that was undernourished, that was close to 13% when we started NFSA in 2013, and now it is just 12%. In between there was COVID factor, I am just ignoring that kind of factor. So why this contradiction that per capita food production is rising so much, but after 17-18, the decline in undernourishment just stopped. So what could be the reasons? Again, there are a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that we are pushing too much that people should consume cereal. 5 kg rice and wheat given free, not only to poor people, to 2/3 of population of this country. Many of those are those who are having high-end cars, living in AC houses and all those things. But we are giving 5 kg rice and wheat free even to them. The contradiction is that we are giving that free, but preference of people, as I showed you from data consumption expenditure to consume cereal is declining, which means even if you give cereal free to everyone in India, the cereal will be used as a feed or something else. It will not be used to increase the intake, which can improve nutrition. What are those kind of foods which can help in reducing or addressing undernutrition from 12% to say 2% or 3%? So some of the candidates there are pulses. Like when I showed the consumer expenditure data, you might have noticed that even in case of pulses, there is a slight decline. So this distinguishing in the decline in cereal vis-a-vis pulses is very important. In cereal, the decline is happening despite the fact that cereal are available in India in abundance. In pulses, the decline has happened because availability of cereal is not rising that fast. People want to consume pulses, but they are not available. And last year we put it zero duty. You will be surprised that despite good production of pulses, the import of pulses reached historically highest level. So this has implication that in order to address nutrition, we need to see to it that our production pattern is more nutrition sensitive. Whatever support we are giving to cereal, the support need to be shifted to pulses, and something of that sort is going to be declared by Prime Minister tomorrow. I am sharing with you in advance that 3 pulses will be purchased by Food Corporation of India the way rice and wheat are procured. MSP will be made effective, not only announced. And 11,000 crore mission already announced last week, that will be launched tomorrow by the Prime Minister. So nutrition sensitive policies that yes, raising cereal, if we are able to export is fine, but it will not help us in improving our nutrition. That is another aspect on which I thought I will share my thoughts with you. So now I come to some concluding remarks. India's agriculture has witnessed unprecedented achievements during the decade 2015 to 2025, recording the highest ever growth in both output and farm income in the country's history. This remarkable performance has been driven by strong policy thrust, innovative initiative, and institutional strengthening like FPO and cooperative that is transforming rural and agrarian landscape. Further, the nature of growth in this decade indicate the growth has been qualitatively superior marked by demand-led diversification toward high-value crop, horticulture, livestock, and allied sectors. This has broadened the geographic and structural base of growth of Indian agriculture, making it more inclusive and regionally balanced. Interestingly, India's agriculture has also defied the conventional trend observed in rapidly growing economies where the share of agriculture in employment decline and with rise in per capita income. In India's case, the sector has absorbed a large part of the expanding workforce, particularly women workforce, in response to demographic changes and rising female work participation rate. This underscores agriculture's enduring role as a social and economic stabilizer. Looking ahead, medium-term projections point out to a growing agri-food surplus at aggregate level. Managing this surplus calls for enhanced competitiveness and efficiency. The evolving scenario opens a historical opportunity. India can now transition toward more sustainable and climate resilient agriculture practices, even if this entails a modest trade-off with growth in production. With rising productivity and surplus level, the country has the policy and economic space to prioritize environmental sustainability, resource conservation, and long-term food security. The underlying trend clearly suggests that the sector is poised for a higher growth trajectory, provided the current favorable policy environment and institutional momentum continue. Sustained agriculture program will thus play a pivotal role in realizing the national vision of Viksit Bharat 2047, enabling the emergence of Viksit states and ensuring that India's development remains inclusive, resilient, and farmer-centric. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful session. Now I would again request Dr. Hashim to say a few words.
Friends, it has been really a great pleasure listening to Dr. Ramesh Chand on Indian agriculture. It's a brilliant lecture, best that I have ever heard on agriculture in recent times. Professor Ramesh Chand has highlighted important achievements of agriculture in India, particularly in recent years. I think the best achievement has been that during the last decade, agriculture has surpassed all our expectations in rate of growth. 4.5% rate of growth over a decade could never be dreamed even. Earlier period, I remember, if we had a growth rate, sustained growth rate of 2%, 2.5%, over 5 to 10 periods, we thought the agriculture has achieved a lot. Because the experience of 50s and 60s, if you go back to the history after independence, was that agriculture in most of the years had negative growth rate. And that is now a past, as he has pointed out. In recent years, there is not a single year with a negative growth rate. There is a positive achievement. This recent growth has come mostly from non-cereal, non-crop sector. It has come from animal husbandry and fisheries. Of course, the growth has been, it is not only the shift in the segment of agriculture that has stimulated growth, but it has been supported by greater, much bigger infrastructure and institutional support, as he has pointed out. Another feature which has been again, which breaks the trend is, from earlier more than 50% of employment in agriculture, the employment was declining, had come down to 43, 44% at one time. It was also a positive feature because there was more employment generated in other sectors. But in recent years, maybe because of high growth, employment in agriculture has again increased to 46%, if I am correct, from 44%. And a more positive feature is that women employment in agriculture has gone up. It is now nearly 50%. Women employment in agriculture was not more than 1/3 earlier. Agriculture over the years has stabilized. The fluctuations in agriculture, the cobweb type of fluctuations and weather-beaten fluctuations are a phenomenon of the past mostly, which again gives great strength to the economy at large. And even more important, I think, over the last decade, the terms of trade have gone in favor of agriculture, which also did not used to happen in the past. Terms of trade mostly were unfavorable to agriculture, but now it has been. Now, if we look at all these achievements, all these facts pointed out by Professor Ramesh, as a whole, we observe that the growth in agriculture, the pattern of growth, particularly segment-wise and commodity-wise, pattern of growth follows by and large the pattern of changes in consumption. And we know that when the income rise, consumption shifts from cereal to non-cereal and from non-cereal to higher value commodities. So from cereal to pulses, more of pulses and oil seeds, and from that to more of animal products, fisheries, fruits and vegetables. And that is happening largely in production also. In the long run, though this growth is important and we expect with all the institutional support, infrastructure and other support, agriculture will be able to maintain this growth. But I think we should keep in mind that, again, following the law of consumption, when income rises further, even the entire consumption comes to a little slowdown, even of non-agricultural, non-cereal and non-cereal commodities. And therefore, that is the stage, if we want to maintain the growth in agriculture that we have so far, we have to go for exports. This also he has pointed out. We have to go for exports. And if you produce agriculture if you have your agriculture for export, the dimensions of the things change very much. The price structure, the competitiveness in the foreign markets. Agriculture is a very competitive business. And the fact that most of the countries subsidize agriculture very heavily, even in the United States, Europe, most of the developed countries subsidize agriculture. The competition in the foreign market for exporting agricultural commodities will be very tough, and we have to prepare ourselves for that. The other fact which gives a little concern is, now it is fine, as Professor Ramesh Chand has pointed out, that increasing employment in agriculture has provided social stability. It has become a thing for unemployed and has provided social stability, which is a very positive feature which we need at present. We don't want unemployed people to just linger around, which we need. But at the same time, we should consider the fact that the share of agriculture in GDP, even after very high growth, has gone up from 15, 16% to 20%. At present, it is 20%. Share of employment in agriculture is 46%. So a very rough arithmetic will tell you that on an average, an agriculturalist gets less than half of the income of those who are producing in non-agricultural sector. This position has to change. And this is in spite of favorable, very favorable terms of trade in agriculture, in spite of very high 4.5% growth is something very high, even internationally. In spite of that, the average income and therefore, I think we have to consider the fact that solution to this problem lies in non-agricultural sector, particularly in manufacturing. Unless we stimulate manufacturing, this disbalance will not get corrected. And that is one sector which India jumped from primary sector to services sector. This is, which has not happened to countries like China or other countries which followed the traditional classical view that you grow from primary to secondary and then to tertiary. So, but this jump is playing a role. I think now we should deliberately give a big push to the industry. I think I will not take much time. I thank Professor Ramesh Chand for delivering such a thoughtful lecture. One can think about the things. It stimulates thought. And I think it leaves all of us with something to think. We carry a lot of meditate. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ramesh Chand, for this explanation.
Thank you, Professor Hashim. Thank you very much and thank you, Professor Chand Sahab. Now I quickly request Dr. Ramesh Chand ji, Sachin Chaturvedi ji, and Professor Hashim to release one very, very important publication of Birds Climate Lens. May I request Birds Director, Dr. Nirupam Mehrotra, to be on the stage, and Professor Surekha Dangwal, madam, please come here and release this very, very important booklet called Birds Climate Initiative. Please come, madam. I will request Nirupam to say 2-3 words about the publication.
Thank you, Professor Ramesh Chand, Professor Hashim, Professor Chaturvedi, dignitaries on the dais. BIRD has been founded by the NABARD, and it is there in existence for capacity building as well as consultancy. We have a climate change center in BIRD, and we have an experiential climate change lab. this is a brief attempt on to work in the space of policy as a bulletin, and we want to do meaningful policy-oriented research. I won't take much time, but I take this opportunity of this podium to pay my respects to Professor Hashim, Professor Chaturvedi, and above all, Professor Ramesh Chand. It's not only always a pleasure, but all your speeches are packed by so much of data and evidence drawing out of them that you feel really the need that, okay, how come after 40, 45, 50 years, we have never been able to do that type of research? It always inspires. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. Thank you so much.